Guys, it's been a while, so you might have forgot what we were doing, but this was last Thursday, what we did. Does anybody remember how we solved that last Thursday? Skylar? No.
Square.
No. Eli?
You make two parentheses, and then you say what multiplied into negative 8 would equal 6, so it'd be negative 4 and negative 2.
Literally.
Or no, it'd be.
Well, actually that,
Oh,
my bad.
okay, that makes sense.
Let's make it -6.
Okay, negative 4, negative 2. And then your answer would be.
Okay, yeah, so you have to, when it's a quadratic equation with an x squared, usually you can factor it. So what multiplies into 8? That adds up to -6.
3.
-4, -2. But that wasn't the answer. The answer is what, so if this times this equals 0, what x values would make this factor 0 or this factor 0?
Plus 2.
2 or 4. Okay, that's what we did last Thursday. On Friday, it was easier because it was just like this. If it's just an x squared, what can we do?
Square root it.
Just get x squared by itself. Then what?
And then square root.
Square root. Okay, but something is wrong.
Positive, negative.
What did I do wrong?
Negative or positive.
Okay, -3 also works, because when you square -3, hush. When you square -3, it's also 9. -3 squared is 9 times 3 is 27.
Whoa.
How's that?
Yeah!
It's a big boy.
Okay,
Terrible.
well, what if it does not factor at all? Hold on, let me.
No real solution.
No, it does have a solution, but they're messy.
It's
Let-
like a 0 quadrant.
Let me, I'm gonna start with one that actually does factor, and then we'll work our way to one that doesn't. Let's try,
Bro, stop.
okay, that one actually does factor, but let's talk about how we can solve it without factoring. Okay, this is called, what we're learning today is called completing the square. Which might not be much to you right now. I'll explain why they call it that in a second. So, step number 1 is you want the constant. So normally we want everything away from the 0 when we're factoring, and this does factor. But when you're completing the square, you actually want the constant on the right side. So I'm going to move that 6 over. Okay, also I'm leaving a gap here on purpose.
Letters.
Okay, so what you do, I should have chosen a different number. Let's do one that's a little bit easier. Okay, I'm changing it. Let's do it this one. This one, you can still do it, but I changed the problem because I want it to be I want our first example to be easier. So what you do is you take the second coefficient, the x term coefficient, you divide it by 2, and then you square it. Okay, divide it by 2, and then square it. What is 2 divided by 2? 1. What's 1 squared? 1. Okay, and then you're going to add that value to both sides.
You're just adding 1 to everything.
Well, it's legal. It's a legal thing to add the same value to both sides, right? So they're still equal.
Illegal to not.
Yeah, if you add a different value to one side to the other side, they won't be equal anymore. Okay, now the reason that we do that is because the left side is now going to factor perfectly.
Perfectly.
Yes. The right side is just not 8 plus 1, 9. Okay, what's the left side going to factor to? So, let me do this. What goes into x squared? What multiplies into 1 that adds up to 2? 1 and 1. Okay, when you complete the square, you'll always get something squared.
So it's the same?
Okay, now we're going to use the trick we learned on Friday. I know that was a long time ago, but I'm going to get rid of the square. How do I get rid of that square?
Square root it.
Okay, but when I do the square root trick, what happens? A plus or minus happens. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
Talked about it a minute ago. Okay, what's my last? Well,
Oh, then you minus 1. And
Right.
then it becomes plus or minus 3.
get x by itself.
I remember that.
Okay, some of you, when we graded on Monday, said you didn't finish this. If you can simplify it more, you need to do that. Can we do more? Yes. What's -1 plus 3?
Negative.
Nope.
It's 2.
2. What's -1? What's -1 minus 3?
Negative 4.
-4. So if you can go all the way to that, you need to. If it comes out normal, that means we actually could have factored at the beginning. But sometimes you're gonna get like a square root answer, like maybe square root of like 4 plus or minus square root of 3. Those problems do not factor. And sometimes you'll get an answer that looks like this. So not every problem is factorable, and sometimes you have to use complete the square. Or there's another trick we'll learn later that can replace it. What?
Which one do you want first? The plus or minus, or like the one that we got? Like on our answer, like it's -1.
Okay, well, when we graded it, some of you put your answer like this, which is correct. Well, like when it's let's say it was a square root answer. That is technically correct, but it looks better if you write it like with a plus or minus in the middle.
Okay.
And that's the way the book will always write it.
Okay.
Sorry, but once again, when are we gonna use this like in a real life situation?
Never. When you get good.
If you're like an engineer or scientist or something.
See, I'm not gonna be one of those.
Sorry, the powers that be said you had to learn it.
It's not necessarily.
McDonald's does not require me
Real life.
to
Huh?
use this kind of formula.
Yeah, it is also good brain exercise, yes. Okay, shh. We're jumping in on page 497.
Mr. Jordan sounds tired.
I have a cold and I took some drugs to help me out.
Bro goes, I took some drugs.
So I'm not feeling great today. Number 1. Okay, what number must be added to complete the square? So in my example, I only did one of them, so you probably forgot. But I took the number in front of the x, I divided it by 2, and then squared it. Yep. Okay, what do you think it is?
Do you do 8 divided by 2, and then that equals 4, and you square it to 16?
Yes.
And then what?
Okay, well, they're not actually, it's not an equation that we're solving. All they're asking for, they're trying to break it down into steps. So really all they're asking for is just to find that number
so
right now.
we don't, not until 15 do we actually have to do stuff?
15, yeah, we're actually start doing,
Bro.
well, today is Wednesday, so we don't have a ton of time. Number 3.
Happy.
Okay. So Carolyn, do you know what we do on number 3?
Divide 16 by 2.
16 divided by 2 is 8, then what?
Square 8, 64.
Do we have to show work, or can we do it in our head?
Just do it. There's like 4 things to read.
Well, on 15, if you didn't get show work, I'd be pretty cranky. But let's
On
just,
15, but like on these, on 1 40.
you could just do like 8 squared equals 64 or something.
Okay.
Okay, number 5, Olivia.
I'm so confused.
Okay, you take the number in front of the x,
No, huh?
-2, and then what did we do with it?
Square.
Divide by 2, which would, what would that equal?
-1.
And then you square it. Now, if we're always squaring it at the end, what's that tell us about our number? It's always gonna be what?
Plus or minus.
No, it's always gonna be positive. When you square a negative, so it doesn't really matter if this is negative or positive, because if we're gonna square it at the end, it's always gonna be positive. So what's it in this case? 1. Okay, this one's a little bit messy. We haven't had a fraction yet. So Sarah, what are we gonna do first? 3 over 2. Okay, 3 divided by 2 is just 3 over 2. Okay, it doesn't really simplify, so we'll just leave it like that.
So if it doesn't,
And then if we square that,
that's,
you know what it is?
says it right.
Well, when you square, it's just multiplied by itself. And when you multiply fractions,
Isn't it?
you just do top times top, bottom times bottom. So you just square the top and square the bottom. What's 3 squared?
6. Wait, 9. 9.
What's 2 squared?
4.
4.
That doesn't simplify.
Yeah, it doesn't simplify.
So if it doesn't like reduce by 2, then just put it over.
Yeah. If this one doesn't reduce 3 over 2, then this one won't reduce. So when you square something, it won't reduce either.
Wait.
Number 9.
Bro, y'all be copying this stuff.
All right, Paxton, what would this one start out as?
Alright, so first you just
Hush.
Alright, so where do you go? Okay, so divide the, or no, the way you do it, you square root.
No.
No, what I meant is basically.
Okay,
Let 'em cook, let 'em cook.
you start by dividing by 2, so it's just -11 over 2. And then you square it. And you square the negative, it'll go away. But what's 11 squared? You guys remember 11 squared?
121.
Over 2 squared.
4.
So it's possible we could get big messy fractions on these.
Big. Messy.
Okay, yeah.
Where are the calculators?
Oh, I gave them to, I kind of forgot about it, but I gave them to Mr. Zamora.
Wow.
Okay, so 3/2 divided by 2. Do you guys know what dividing by 2
Multiplying.
is the same thing as
Or multiplying by 1/2.
multiplying by 1/2? When you divide a fraction, it's like flipping them. So, Linux, what's 3/2 times 1/2 gonna be? No, multiply. You multiply is just top times top, bottom times bottom. It's when you add that you don't change, or subtract that you do not change the denominator. So we need to do 3/4 squared. So what's 3 squared? And 4 squared.
Goofy air conditioning.
Yeah, it's the heater, and I do not want it on in here. Sounds like it's barely going. It'll turn to AC in the afternoon, but
Bro, ain't no
I want
way.
the AC. I want to be cool.
yeah, it's too warm in here already. Okay, Sophia, what are we gonna do first?
Why do I have to do this?
Divide by 2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. So what's, now the negative doesn't really matter because when you square it, it goes away anyway. So I'm just gonna kind of forget about the negative.
Will any of these
So-
numbers be negative?
No, when you square a negative, it becomes positive. So what would that be? 10 over 22. Okay, we might need a calculator now. 10 squared, you guys know that one, right?
Yeah.
100. 22 is like 44 plus 440, so 484.
That's easy.
Oh, you know what?
That.
I should have reduced before I did that, right?
Yeah, easy was just
25.
5 over 11.
Actually, we probably should have reduced right here. You guys remember when you multiply, you can reduce,
Cancel.
cross cancel. So it should have been 5/11s, and then we didn't need a calculator for that. Because 11
1 third.
squared, we just did a minute ago.
Oh yeah, I was thinking. My bad.
Okay, yeah. Easton wanted the challenge, so we set him up.
You see little goofy goober?
He's a goofy goober.
He's my goofy.
Okay,
Facts.
so when you write this down, you kind of want to, it's been a while since I did the actual problem. You kind of want to leave a space right there.
Yay.
Okay, so Easton, your first task is to do what we did on 1 through 13. Take this number, divide it by 2. It's kind of like
1.
my example, wasn't it? And then square it. So 1 squared is
1.
1. So we're going to put a plus 1 right there, and if you add 1 to one side, you have to add 1 to the other side to keep it equal. This number divided by 2 squared, what we're doing on 1 through 14, is 1. Okay, the reason that we do that is because the left side is going to factor into a perfect square. So, and the right side is 15 plus 160. So what, Easton, what multiplies into 1 that adds up to 2? 1 and 1, right?
Yeah.
So it's a plus 1, a plus 1. By the way, this answer right here on these problems will always be the square root of this, and it'll also always be the half of that, or like that, like this part right here. Anyways, it'll always be something squared when you use this trick, because we're completing the square. We're making something that's squared. Okay, then does anybody remember what I did on my example at this point?
Didn't you square root it?
Emily? Square root it?
Or shoot?
Yes, I did. And that got rid of the square. And what did I do wrong?
You didn't put before the 4.
Plus or minus.
Plus or minus. Anytime you do the square root trick, it'll be a plus or minus over there. Okay, what's my last step?
Stuff.
Subtract 1.
Yeah.
So basically this is positive 4 minus, I could write it like this, but what's negative 1 plus 4 and negative 1 minus 4? What's negative 1 plus 4? 3. What's negative 1 minus 4? Negative 5.
My honest reaction.
I think all the answers we're going to get are going to be like normal answers, not square root answers, because I didn't assign any of the B section.
I think you did.
We'll have to do some of those later.
You assigned the exercises.
He only gave us 19 and 20 for each.
Yeah, I knew we wouldn't have a lot of time, so x squared plus 4x. Okay, I'm going to leave a space right there.
We like our spaces.
Oh.
Alright, Eli, what are we going to do first?
Divide by 2 and then square it, so it'd be plus 4.
So 4 divided by 2 is 2, squared is 4. So we're going to add 4 to both sides.
Mhm. Mhm.
Then you're
Okay,
Yep.
what's the left side going to factor to?
what? 2
I
into
remember
x plus 2 x plus 2.
X plus 2 and x plus 2. 2 and 2 multiply to 4 and they add up to 4 also. So it's x plus 2 times x plus 2 or x plus 2 squared
Don't make that close.
equals,
That's mine.
9.
alright, then, now what do I do?
You square root both of them. Get x plus 2 equals plus or minus 3. And then you subtract 2 on both sides. And then you get negative 2 plus 3 is 1, and negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. Mr. Donald, when do we do that for parentheses?
Hmm?
When do we do the parentheses?
Well, if you want to do, like, since all of this is squared, I needed a parentheses, but once I got rid of the square, it wouldn't really need it anymore. Just kind of depends. If
Trust them.
this one just means 3 times x plus 2, this one means 3 times all of x plus 2. So it depends on what you're doing.
Well, I meant the,
Right. Something's like my teeth.
like you go like that, and then like that.
Oh, we could have done that. I just kind of skipped a step. I'm starting to go faster. So this is the same thing as this. I just kind of skipped it. But yeah, on the last problem, I wrote it, and then I changed it into that. And on this one, I just kind of went straight to that. It's always going to be a double on these. It's always going to be something squared perfectly. I'll write it on this one. I got ahead of myself maybe. Okay, what's different on 19, Clayton? Can you tell what's different on these?
The 0. Well, don't you like want it to go towards the 0?
Yeah, so if we were factoring, like normal factoring, we would just start right now, like with the parentheses. But for completing the square, we want the constant. Constant means not the variable on the right side. You gotta move it over.
Oh, then do we have to do the thingy that we just did?
Okay, now it's set up like the rest of the problem. So now what do I do, Clayton?
Divide the 10 by 2.
10 divided by 2 is
5.
5. 5 squared is
25.
25. So we're going to add 25. Okay. The right side is 24 plus 25. 49. What's the left side?
X minus 5. Yeah, x minus 5.
X minus 5, x minus 5, or x minus 5 squared.
And then square root it.
Square root it. Square root of 49 is 7.
And then plus 5. Bang.
Okay, 7 plus 5 is 12, or negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2. Hmm. Yeah. Jaden, are you 15 or 16?
He's 12.
Dang, old man.
I know. I'm older than him.
Don't care, Vanessa.
I have my permit.
Shut up.
Dang.
That's, I'm sorry for whoever has to be in the car with you.
Or